Have you ever wondered what it actually takes to build something like an app or a piece of software? We always see the shiny, finished product, right? But we almost never get to see the messy, frustrating, and sometimes triumphant journey behind it all. Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to pull back the curtain.
So check this out. An afternoon of fail. This is a real actual entry from a developer's log. And I mean, if you've ever tried to build anything, a piece of furniture, a company, anything, you know this feeling deep in your bones, right? It's that moment where absolutely nothing is working. And believe it or not, this single, simple sentence, that's where our story really kicks off.
And see, that's the secret, isn't it? This idea that greatness just appears in some flash of genius, that's a myth. The reality is that it's built brick by brick in the middle of all these tiny little failures. It's about refusing to give up. It's about solving one problem, and then the next one, and then the one after that. That's how real stuff gets made.
All right, so let's get into it. The star of our story is a piece of software with a really big promise. It's an AI marketing tool. It's called BrassGate, and it was facing a huge problem. I'm talking about the kind of problem that can stop a project cold, right in its tracks.
So what exactly is BrassGate? Well, it's actually a super clever tool built for indie game developers, the small creative teams. It takes all their game assets and uses AI to just automatically whip up marketing content. Articles, social media posts, you name it. The mission behind it is fantastic. The problem? The tech underneath was starting to crack under the pressure.
And this table here, it really shows you the system's growing pains. I mean, look at that first stage, the prototype. It started with what's called a shared namespace. Now, what that means is that all the client data was basically jumbled together in one big pot. For internal testing, fine. But for real customers, that's a disaster waiting to happen. A huge data leak risk. So version 1 tried to fix this with something called scopes, but it was just a complex, messy Band-Aid. To actually become a secure, professional product, it had to evolve into version 3, where every single client's data is completely walled off and safe. But man, getting from there to here, that was the real battle.
And that brings us right back to that afternoon of fail. See, to really understand the huge challenge of rebuilding this entire platform, we're going to zoom way in. We're going to look at one single painful bug-fixing session. Because this one afternoon, it's like a perfect little snapshot of the entire struggle of software development.
Okay, so the goal for the afternoon seemed so simple. Hey, we've got this new image upload feature, just make it work exactly like the document upload feature that we already have, the one that works perfectly. I mean, how many times have you heard that? It sounds easy, right? You've got a proven pattern to follow? What could possibly go wrong? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything.
And this right here, this is that cascade of failure in action. It all started with a simple typo, an import error, a tiny mistake. But instead of just fixing that one little thing, the developer went completely off the rails. They went down this rabbit hole of trying to build a whole new authentication system that nobody even asked for. This is classic scope creep, and it just led to more errors, more confusion, and hours of completely wasted time, all because they strayed from that simple initial request.
And then this quote was the turning point. This is that moment of clarity that's born out of pure frustration. The project lead finally stepped in and just said, wait, why are we looking for this crap? The document uploader worked, didn't it? I just want the image uploader to use the same authentication. It was like a reset button. Stop. Let's throw out all this over-engineered nonsense and just go back to what we know works.
So what are the big lessons here, right? This is the crucial part. First off, when a working pattern already exists, just copy it. Copy it exactly first. Don't try to improve it until the basic thing is solid. Second, you have to respect the scope. And maybe the most important lesson of all, a quick rollback to something you know works is always better than a long, painful detour into the unknown.
Now, that one afternoon of fail, that wasn't just a one-off thing. It was a symptom of a much bigger problem. To stop constantly putting out fires, the team knew they had to shift from day-to-day firefighting to thinking about long-term architecture. They needed a real blueprint for a better system, and that system was version 3.
And you can see the difference right here. On the left, you've got the legacy system, a tangled mess of code, a real spaghetti monster. But the vision for V3 on the right, it's clean, it's modular, it's built for growth. Every client is totally separated, error handling is standardized, and hey, look at that. Usage quotas can finally be tracked properly. This is the promised land.
Now, this wasn't going to be some big, risky, all-at-once, big-bang release. No way. It had to be a careful, step-by-step migration.
This timeline here shows you just how methodical the plan was. Rebuild the whole application, piece by piece, module by module, starting with images and documents, all the way to video generation, making sure everything was stable at every single stage.
Okay, now we get to what is honestly my favorite part of this whole story. Because the key to unlocking all this amazing future innovation, it wasn't some flashy brand new technology. Nope. It was about creating a foundation of something that developers sometimes call, well, boring. And I just love this quote. We reset to a simple, boring, stable Postgres schema. Instead of a database full of clever, complex tricks that are an absolute nightmare to debug, they chose simplicity. They chose predictability. See, boring in this context means reliable. It means stable. It means you can build on top of it without constantly worrying that the ground is going to shift out from under you. It is the bedrock that makes everything else possible. And you can see the power of boring right here. Remember how the old system struggled with tracking customer usage? Well, the new system does it in 5 simple, lightning-fast steps. It just fetches the client's plan, checks their limit, and then increases their usage counter in a single atomic operation. That means it can't be broken or interrupted. It's clean, it's efficient, and it just works every single time. So, after all that grinding, all that failure, and all that careful architectural work, what was the payoff? What did they get for all that pain? Well, they could finally start building the powerful new features that were totally impossible before. So what's the big reward for trading in all that chaotic firefighting for solid architecture? Simple. You get to innovate. You finally get to build the cool stuff you always dreamed of building, and you get to do it with confidence.
And that payoff was a new feature called the Content Studio. The idea was to take a client's conversations and documents and automatically turn them into articles ready to be published. Now, this is a complex feature. It needed reliable, secure access to a bunch of different data types, all while enforcing those quotas we talked about. It would have completely shattered the old fragile system. But on the new V3 foundation, it was finally possible.
But you know, the story doesn't just end there with the perfect feature. The problems didn't just magically disappear. Even with a great foundation, you still get bugs. In this case, a new job would get stuck in the queue forever. Why? Because the user interface and the backend weren't agreeing on where to find the output files. The cycle of problem solving? It never really ends. But here's the key difference. Because the V3 architecture was so well defined and so logical, the fix was actually simple and clear. There was a standard place for things to go. It wasn't some wild goose chase through tangled code. It was just a straightforward correction. See? Good architecture doesn't eliminate problems. It just makes them a heck of a lot easier to solve. And that really is the core lesson from this entire journey. That shiny product you see at the end, it's just the tip of the iceberg. What's really going on beneath the surface is this relentless, continuous cycle. You build something, you watch it fail, you learn from that failure, and then you rebuild it, each and every time on a stronger, more stable foundation.
So, I want to leave you with this question to think about. Whether you're building software or starting a business or even just tackling a big creative project, what's the simple, stable, maybe even boring foundation that your next great idea really needs? What's the bedrock you have to build first so that your great idea has a real chance to take off and fly?